Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime gods, the Cat. Cat, how you doing this week?
Woo! It's kind of a hell week at work, so forgive me if I'm kind of like brain fried, because my brain is fried. Yeah, it's fried.
Okay, all right. Enjoying this nice fall weather we're having?
I mean, we finally got some. Like 2 weeks ago, it was like 90 degrees outside, and then it snowed. So, I mean, you know, typical.
Okay, all right. Didn't get that bad over here. So
It literally snowed on Halloween. That's the worst thing. The worst.
Oh, now I'm imagining someone building a snowman, but with the head being a pumpkin.
Do you want to build a pumpkin? Like, I don't know. It was so cold. It's a little bit nicer now, but like, yeah, it snowed on Halloween after having been 90 degrees just a little bit before then. So, as per usual, we skipped the fall.
Yep. I'm enjoying the nice cool weather over here too. Now it's actually weather that I can actually go out. I go outside and not just spontaneously burst into flames. Although I'm really hating the fact that there's a giant ass tree right above that that grows right next to my house, because I don't know if I ever mentioned this, but there's a skylight in the ceiling of my bedroom, and this tree has this one long branch that extends over my bedroom roof. And it's an oak tree, so acorns fall off it, and when they hit that skylight, it sounds like a gunshot. So there's nothing that'll wake you up like having an acorn hit that skylight and having this loud gong go off. So yeah, but anyway, Birdman, how are you doing?
Swingity swooty, I'm coming for the booty. I'm good. You never quite know what I'm gonna say on this show, do you?
No, we don't. That's why we've had to institute a 7-second delay, which, well, at least we would if we actually recorded live, but we don't. So
it's live to tape ish. Anyway, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Today, I chased my wife around a parking lot in my wheelchair, screaming, "Get over here, Whitey!" Just as you do, as Canadian custom. And
because you're part indigenous, you can actually say that.
That's right, cracker. So it was a great time. I got several looks from the local community. It was great.
All right. Well, we got a fun show for you guys tonight. We were discussing the potential death of physical media and the rise of digital media. So, yeah, that's going to be kind of an interesting discussion. Definitely some things to say about that. But, of course, there's prestige to follow. So we're going to begin, as always, with Ask a Geek. And I'm going to first address a question that we've gotten many copies of over the last week. And that's, no, I'm not going to make Kat tell her Ouija board story. Holy crap.
Happening. It's not happening, guys. You see how I just threw that little hook out there? And then I'm reeling you in, but I'm not actually going to deliver. It's not happening.
So you're gonna be like Chris Carter, running the X-Files for the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, there is a story, and I teased it, but you're not getting it.
She wouldn't even tell us off air.
Nope.
Something fucked with you hardcore.
Oh yeah, sure did.
All right, but we do have some questions here, and the first one here, let me dig it up again. Let's see here. Okay, all right. First one here comes from Ray, and his question is to me. And okay, actually, I've already answered that question. What the fuck? How do I? All right, hang on.
Answer it again, but with a French accent.
Oh my god! Don't ask him to do accents. He's the worst.
Too right, mate.
Oh my god! Did you just even? My lord.
I don't know if that was supposed to be Cockney or Australian.
That was Australian, and he had said French.
Oh, okay.
Lord. Oh, God. Kill it with fire.
Okay, our first question here comes from Lucas, and it is addressed to me, and his question is what I think of the Galar region Pokedex leaks. And if they're true, they make me very sad, because almost none of the Pokemon that I use regularly are in there. Not even my favorite, the Elekid, Electabuzz, Electivire line. which really disappoints me because it means I can't use my level 100 Electivire that I've had in my team for 15 years since Fire Red and Leaf Green. So it's like, oh no, my children, Daddy must say goodbye. He's gonna have to put you over here in this box and not use you. I still maintain that there's some long-term plan to make use of the full Pokedex. Like they're gonna come out with some kind of like Pokemon Stadium style side game for online only, like competitive play. I really don't think that they're going to just throw away 800 plus Pokemon and make them totally unusable. There's some kind of plan. But yeah, no. But I'm still excited for Sun and Moon. Yeah, let's try that again. I'm still excited for Sword and Shield, regardless. I hope I should be. I ordered 6 fucking copies of it.
I still think you're severely fucked up for that. But hey, it's your money.
I didn't choose the collector life. The collector life chose me. So when they stop releasing games in steelbooks, I will stop buying them. Except not really. I'll still keep fucking buying them because I'm sick in the head that way. All right. So yeah, he's also got another question here about the finale of the Pokemon Sun and Moon anime, which I have not. I can't answer because I have not watched the Pokemon anime in years. I think
I got you beat. I haven't seen it in decades.
I think the last one I watched was the advanced generation. With May and her little brother, but I don't remember if I ever finished it. But no, I haven't watched the anime in years. So I heard he finally won a I heard Ash finally won a championship though. So you know that's great. It only took him 20 fucking years.
Yeah, and he hasn't aged much in that time. So good for him.
You know, someone on YouTube somewhere worked out the math on how old Ash is supposed to be, based on the number of episodes of the show, and he came up to he's supposed to be like 21 by now.
Oh my god.
Ash is of legal drinking age. My god, that'd be amazing watching him getting trashed. Pikachu, go fuck that guy up.
Pikachu.
That is not the first time you've done that.
No, I do the Pikachu voice for people at work. I've never watched Pokemon, but like, yeah.
I like you. Like the minute I heard that, I was like, "You've practiced that."
Yeah, I could probably go a little bit higher, but I have a bit of a sore throat this week, so maybe some other time, fans.
Okay, and let's see here now. Next question here comes from Danny, and it's to all of us, and it's: are we going to try Disney Plus when it comes out?
Gauge
So,
one, motherfuckers!
Yeah.
Mandalorian, baby!
We are suckers, guys. We are suckers. But yes, of course, it's a big. I can't help but think that it is a big scam. You know, the method that they have gone about it is not necessarily the nicest thing in the world, but all that original content, of course, I have to watch Mandalorian and Loki and all this Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, there was no chance I wasn't going to watch it just already for the Disney movies and everything. But all the original content is just, I can't wait.
We're corporate whores, but at least we admit it.
Yeah, that's the important thing.
At $7 a month, you can't go wrong.
You know, I actually wasn't going to get into it. I had kind of a wobble when they announced that they were going to have the Disney afternoon cartoons on it, but I have most of those on DVD already. Until I got a text from my from Verizon, my wireless provider, saying, "Oh, we're going to give you, because you have our unlimited plan, we're going to give you a year of Disney Plus for free." And I'm like, "All right, at that price, I can't say no to it." So, but yeah, I think we're all going to at least give it a whirl. So yeah, that we'll see how that shakes out. And he's got another question here, pretty much mostly directed at the gamers. Is that, have we seen the trailer for the Netflix Witcher series, and what do we think about it? And I have not actually seen the trailer yet, and I honestly I don't really know enough about the Witcher as a property to really say anything on it if I did, because I literally just like 2 weeks ago started playing The Witcher 3 for the first time, and I've never read the books, I've never played the games prior to that, so I really don't know much about the franchise. So I'll probably give it a shot, see how it is, because the game has certainly hooked me. I think Henry Cavill looks a little weird as Geralt of Rivia, but I mean, at the very least, they don't have to airbrush away a mustache, so there's that.
I think it looks surprisingly decent. I mean, it's pretty clear Netflix did put some money into this. I haven't played any of the Witcher things either. I've only read the RPG sourcebook from R. Talsorian. So the world of The Witcher is interesting to me. I'm hoping it'll be as cool and as in-depth as Game of Thrones. So I'll give it a shot. Why not? I already have a Netflix subscription anyway, so I need something to fill my fantasy quotient.
From what I understand, the Netflix series is actually going to be based closer to the original books. So now I'm kind of interested in picking up the books and reading them. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe we'll do a show on it in 2020 when it comes out. So we'll see. And let's see here now. Let's see if there's one here for Kat. I don't want her. I've answered a whole bunch of questions here. Let's see if we can't spread the love around. Okay, let's see here. Again, trying to find one that's not about the Ouija board story.
How many of those did we get?
We got like 20 of them.
Holy shit.
Y'all have problems.
Okay, and then we actually got a couple asking about the koala bear story, which is surprising because we've told that one about like 6 times.
Yeah,
I
I'll
don't
tell
know
the
what it
koala
is.
bear. The koala bear story is public knowledge. I have spoken on the koala story many times. Look, there's just horror manga you shouldn't read, and some of them involve stuffed koalas.
Okay, anyway, putting the train back on the tracks again. Man, we've all got ADD tonight. All right, next question here. This one comes from Eric, and it's to you, Kat. And his question is have you heard of or tried the Otaku Box, and what do you think of it?
I have never heard of the Otaku Box. Is that like a...
It's basically an anime loot crate.
Yeah, because I don't see that many that are actually like anime themed. I see a lot of like Japanese candy and food themed ones, and I'd much rather do that because I feel like Loot Crate anime version or this Otaku Box, I'd probably end up with a lot of stuff I don't care about. And that's because I am becoming an old person who only cares about shit from 20 years ago. And I'm not necessarily that person, but I'm a little bit that person, you know? And when I did, like, get Loot Crate and get anime stuff, or my friend got anime Loot Crate, and he would give me all of this stuff that he didn't want, and I'd look at it and go, I don't know what any of this is. And then the stuff I did know, it was like, okay, I know what that is, but I don't care. And I feel like because I've already gotten so many Loot Crates over the years that I would just end up with a bunch of shit I don't need.
That's right, because you were really deep into the Loot Crate game for a while, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked it because it was like getting a present every month. And then once they made the Harry Potter Loot Crate, I switched over to that. And then they made a Lord of the Rings one. And it's only supposed to run 3 times this year. And it's all fucked up, just like all of everyone else's Loot Crates are. But I switched from Harry Potter to Lord of the Rings because Lord of the Rings is the best thing in the entire world. And then they fucked up the Loot Crate hard. So I might get my other 2 Loot Crates by the end of the year.
Yeah, the only one I subscribe to, and I've actually done videos on this in the past, is the Retro Game Treasure Box, which it sends you like 3 or 4 retro games every month or so. And and most of the time, most of the games they send me are stuff that I either already have in my collection or don't really care about. But the reason why I hang on to it is because without fail, there's at least one Japanese import game in there, and that's what I'm interested in.
How much does that sort of thing cost?
Like $20, right?
Surprisingly inexpensive. I think. Let me actually look. I think it's only like $35.
That's neat.
I mean, the games that you get are stuff that's like really common. I know fully well. You're not going to open up a Retro Game Treasure Box and find a complete in box copy of Snatcher. It's just not going to happen. You know, you're not going to go, oh, this month I get KO Flying Squadron, which is a $1,500 game. No, I get stuff like, like I got Halo on the Xbox. I got a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game. I got a Super Mario Brothers, of which I already have like 3 in my collection. But for some reason, I don't know if it's just that's what they do, or if I set it up that way, or if I just lucked out. But every month there's been a Japanese Famicom or Super Famicom game. And like, oh, this is actually really neat. This is something that I'd be interested to try out and play because, you know, I want to start collecting some of the old school Nintendo import games that we never got over here. So this is kind of like, oh, you know, this is a neat little thing for me. And I've actually, I've actually got a friend who's a little bit jealous of me because he's a huge Dragon Quest fan, and he wants the games that were out on the NES. But Dragon Quest 4, which was released in the States as Dragon Warrior 4, is like $100 game that he just doesn't have the money for. Meanwhile, I got the Japanese version for free through this Loot Crate box. And even then, the Japanese version only goes for like $10 if you get it off eBay. So he's a little pissed off at me for that. You know, that's really what keeps my interest. Because I mean, if it wasn't for that, I probably would have canceled it a long time ago. Because I much prefer going out to the stores or going out to, you know, the auction sites and searching for the games myself. Plus, I mean, let's be honest. Do I really look like a guy who enjoys Tony Hawk's Pro Skater?
Hey, man, that series is fucking awesome. Don't you talk shit about the Hawk. That's a fellow Birdman you're talking shit about.
Oh my lord.
All right. Well, anyway, that's all the Ask the Geek questions that we have for this week. Thank you as always for sending them in. As always, you can send them to us through the email at drgonzo@nerdofthethirdpower.com. We love getting your questions, love reading them on the air, so get your questions in. We might just answer it on the show. And so with that, this week we are discussing a subject that's, you know, kind of, it's something that we've heard a lot of doom and gloom and soothsaying about over the last couple years. But it's something we really kind of want to dig our teeth into and examine. And that's this idea going around that physical media is dying and that we're moving towards an all digital future. So we just kind of want to examine that and see kind of where the landscape is headed, and kind of see, you know, are we really heading that way? Or is there always going to be a place for physical media? So, Birdman, since you kind of keep a lot of your ear to the ground in this kind of thing a lot, what are your thoughts on this idea of the all digital future?
I myself kind of like it, but I can see how it's problematic, especially when it comes to what you own and what you have license to. For example, there was a big to-do a couple years ago where Apple delisted some movies from iTunes. So if you owned them, doesn't matter. They're out of your collection now. Too bad. And that's horseshit to me. But if you own the DVDs, what's like Disney gonna come to your house and say, "Hey, you see that copy of Aladdin? Take it, or take it and give it to me, or I'll break your legs." Yeah. So physical media on one hand's a great thing because digital preservation and preservation in general is very important. Like, I did an interview a couple weeks ago with a director of a horror movie documentary, and we touched upon this very, very briefly, because some movies have only ever had a release on VHS or film. Sometimes they get released on DVD, sometimes they get released on Blu-ray, but sometimes those masters or those film reels get lost to time and space. So, that's a problem, and we're losing many parts of our media just because they get lost in a warehouse somewhere, or the rights get tied up because somebody somewhere needs to make money, because you always need to get more of it. So it is problematic, and I don't think all digital, though, can be a bad thing. I myself do it for convenience, and it's more of an accessibility issue. Because I'm in a wheelchair, getting up to put a disc in my Xbox or my PS4 is a pain in the ass. Whereas I can just have the game digital, and I just have to snap my fingers and the game works. So while it is nice to have a physical disc of something, sometimes I just like to have that. But again, when property holders delist games from digital marketplaces, you lose access to it. Like, I know, for example, this just happened this week. Sony is shutting down the servers for SingStar, which means even in January 2020, so even stuff you've already bought, unless you get it now, you won't have access to that forever, even though you bought it. But that just means you bought a license to use it. So it's problematic. I mean, to talk another thing again with convenience, and this comes down to simply space. I have a lot of role-playing game books. If you've seen my library from Facebook and Twitter, it's pretty extensive. However, I'm running out of space, and I used to collect comic books. I'm running out of space. I now collect exclusively digital comic books. I've been reading the Boom Studios Power Rangers comic for about 2 years now, and every issue I own is completely digital because I can't imagine taking up space in my apartment with this stuff anymore. It's just convenience, and I do think certain things are moving more towards digital because of simply convenience. I know brick and mortar comic book stores are starting to kind of feel the pinch of this because more people are making that move over. Yes, there will always be a market for physical collectors who want to have that stuff, who want to have the pages between their fingers, but those are a lot of older people. A lot of the younger generation have just grown up in this digital age. They're just used to it. So I throw the floor to you guys. What do you guys think?
I think it sucks that the pressure change is causing me to have a fucking nosebleed. That's what I think.
Good times.
I'm sitting here with a fucking tissue shoved up my nose.
Well, thank you for that derailment.
Yes.
The anime industry, I feel, was forced to go digital. I think maybe a little ahead of games, maybe. Just due to straight up piracy, because piracy did its damnedest to kill the industry, not just here in the United States, but because what happens here affects Japan. The piracy, really came close to killing the whole goddamn thing, you know? Because the piracy was all through streaming and downloading and everything, anime had to go digital. And manga had to go digital to compete with the people who were illegally distributing everything. So there was no choice there. Either everything went digital and as free as conceivably possible in order to compete with pirates, or die. And we know that was the choice because so many companies failed at the same time. And it was a hard hit and a hard lesson for everyone to learn. And now there's simul-dubbing and simulcasting and getting everything over as fast as possible. And that's all just to compete with pirates. And it really, really sucks. But it's really nice too, isn't it? It's so nice to just not have to go to the store and spend $30 on a VHS tape with 3 episodes on it.
Where are you going? We're only getting it for $30.
It was at Suncoast Video back in the day. It was like $30 for 3 episodes. Subbed, and
okay,
for whatever reason, it was less if it was dubbed, and that was back in my day when I was a young anime fan. This is how we got our VHS tapes of anime. But it sucked, and now it's great. It is so great. You could get your anime in HD the day after it's released on TV in Japan, and that's insane. That's insane. But I, as a collector, really like having the DVDs and stuff. It's like you said, Birdman, it's not as convenient. I like when I can never leave my couch for any reason at all, even if the reason I leave my couch is just to change out a disc. It's so nice to not have to do that. But on the other hand, kind of like you said, the games might be taken away. Well, it's the same thing with anime. Licenses don't always get renewed. Because the licenses for something like a smaller show might last 5-10 years and then it's gone. And then nobody has it anymore, except for the pirates, of course. So if you want that thing, if you want to keep watching that thing forever, you got to buy it. You got to buy it on DVD or Blu-ray and keep it and hoard it and never let anyone else borrow it because they'll never give it back. Or if that has been other people's experience besides just mine.
One of the things sorry, go ahead, Kat.
So yeah, I don't feel like, at least in terms of anime, that the physical media will ever truly die, because there is no guarantee with the licensing that this thing is going to be around forever. But because I think the companies are less inclined to, there's the Aniplexes and the the NIS Americas, the California companies, we'll just say, their physical copies tend to be collectors only kind of deal, like a really expensive but really nice set, and they're just marketing themselves to the collectors, and then that's it. And that's also kind of problematic because a lot of their stuff doesn't necessarily end up online for people to watch. So again, it's a tricky balance with the anime industry.
One industry that I think's kind of benefiting from the return of physical media is the music industry. I have seen, especially us over at This Week in Geek, we're seeing a big boom in CDs making a comeback. We're making
you want to talk?
Making a comeback.
I was gonna say, you want to talk about formats making a comeback. I was reading an article the other day about how vinyl records have outsold CDs for the first time in 20 years.
And that's so amazing. And you're getting really weird ones. I know one we just reviewed recently is we reviewed the Transformers Seasons 1 and 2 original soundtracks. So those little jazzy music beats you'd hear in the Transformers episodes. Another one they just put out was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles original soundtrack from 1987. And then today from La La Land Records, we got the soundtrack to Child's Play 2, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, Bride of Frankenstein, some other shit. And it's cool because these were never available before. They might be available on a streaming platform somewhere, but there's obviously a demand for it, and you're not going to put that shit out on Spotify or Apple Music or even Google Music. No, people want the physical CD, so they have it. And especially with sound, you want the physical representation because vinyl does sound better than digital. It has a warmer sound, and I will fight anybody on that too. I went to school for audio. You can trust me on this one. You can hear a difference. You got a lot more headroom with it. Like concerts, or that's another thing too. People record concerts and put them out on Blu-ray in 5.1. That's pretty fucking awesome, and having that in your collection is amazing too. And again, licensing and playback issues, a lot of musicians don't like a lot of the streaming services because they don't get paid a lot. So if you want to support a musician, especially like your local hip-hop artists, your local rock bands, go to their shows, buy their merch. Stuff like that, because you may not be able to find these really cool bands on Spotify or Google or Apple, but you can sure as hell buy a CD. Hell, you can buy a vinyl. My friend Alex, my co-host, went to an 80s band called Helix a couple of weeks ago in Kitchener, and he got their long out of print Christmas album. An 80s hair metal band doing Christmas songs. Figure that one out. But that's neat. That's a collector's market right there. So,
man, you're talking about buying, about going to shows and buying merchandise. And I'm flashing back to that line from Brutal Legend. You see, merchandise is like a wedding ring. It's a material thing, yes, but it signifies a deeper devotion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like the last time I went to a show was like a Proto Men show, and I bought like all their posters, all their CDs. Now I need is their vinyl. Hell, there's even a limited edition cassette tape you can buy. Cassettes are coming back.
No, they're not.
You can buy a new... certain bands are putting out limited edition cassettes. I still have a cassette player.
And Sony's bringing back the Walkman.
Everything retro is coming back, baby!
Yep.
Disco can't be far behind!
Here's the thing, though. Is it really coming back, or is it like a gimmick thing that a few people are going to buy too? Because
I think for cassette, it's probably a gimmick. You're probably right. But vinyl, that's a collector right there.
Yeah, vinyl is a collector thing. I have a hard time believing that CDs are still doing well because, like, you can't find them anywhere anymore unless you're specifically going to, like, a store for that. And the big thing, and the reason why I don't buy CDs anymore, is that I can't find a fucking laptop with a CD drive. You have to really go out of your way to buy a like if you just own a laptop like I do, I don't own a tower. it doesn't, almost none of them come with CD drives anymore. You have to spend a bunch of money on an external, which I just haven't done yet. So I'm not buying any physical CDs, which I prefer for my music because I like to just, have things, but like I have no way of ripping it and putting it onto my phone. So I might as well just do a straight download.
Yeah, that is something I've noticed, that a lot of laptops, at least the entry level ones, don't have CD drives. For a lot of laptops, if you want an optical drive, you have to get one of the mid level or even an enthusiast level laptop. Like the laptop that I have that I'm currently recording this on is an Asus gaming laptop that cost like $800, and I was like, it was like a $200 difference between this model and the one that did not come with an optical drive.
Mine is much more expensive than that and doesn't have a drive.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't, because they took the drives out to make everything more lightweight, and also because nobody uses CDs anymore. Like CD-ROMs aren't really a thing. There's not enough people that are getting their programs and like software on CD. So, I mean, even all that's going away for straight up downloads. So yeah, I have a $1,000 laptop that doesn't have a CD drive in it.
Interesting. Well, swinging back to games for a moment. I don't know if Birdman mentioned this while I was busy bleeding the fuck out. But there's this kind of minor controversy going on in the game community about companies trying to move towards games as a service and the coming of streaming, like Google Stadia and PlayStation Now. And I kind of have to laugh at that a little bit, because the thing about especially streaming services like Google Stadia is we've tried them before and they didn't work. There was a service a few years ago called OnLive, yeah, which I actually have one of their consoles. I got it for $20 on Amazon like a year ago. Doesn't do shit because the servers have been down for a couple years now. But the idea was basically you would get this little console that you'd hook up to your television, hook up to the internet, and then the game would stream to your device. The problem with that is you have to consider the state of American internet architecture, which, it's no secret we're far behind the rest of the world in terms of, our internet infrastructure. I think only like 3 states in the U.S. have all-state fiber or something like that. So, the technology, the infrastructure just isn't there. And that's a problem when you consider that the U.S. is one of, if not the biggest market for video games. So, when we did our E3 show this year, and me and Skyblades were talking about Google Stadia, I mean, we were just laughing at it because we're like, we see what you're trying to do, but we also see that there is no, you're trying to build a railway without a rails, is what you're trying to do. You're trying to build a faster train on a non-existent railway. So I don't see physical media, at least for games, dying out for, I'd say, maybe a couple of generations, just because it's going to take about that long for the infrastructure to be there for, good streaming all across the country. And also another thing is, I'm not sure how much impact this has had, but there's also been a rise, like you mentioned with music, of the collector's market. People are starting to get into collecting the physical copies of the games, and you're starting to see companies like Limited Run and Super Rare Games coming out with physical editions of games that were previously only released digitally. Great example, again, like Limited Run Games. I have like 5 or 6 of their games, and they just came out with a physical I don't know how they pulled this off, but they got the license from Netflix to put out a physical release of the Stranger Things 3 video game, which I have not pre-ordered because I didn't much care for that game, but that's a discussion for a different table. But we're seeing this rise of this collector's market in games, and I'm thinking that is at least for now, it's having an influence in how console manufacturers are designing their consoles and affecting how it's affecting their business models. Like, it's not without reason that there's this rumor floating around that the PlayStation 5 is going to be backwards compatible with all previous PlayStation libraries. It's because people want this kind of thing. They want to be able to play these older games on the newer consoles without having to have a bunch of stuff hooked up to one television. Like, there's a reason why when Microsoft announced that the Xbox One was going to be able to play some OG Xbox games, that the internet fucking exploded. So I think that if physical media does eventually go the way of the dodo and die out completely, I think it's going to go kicking and screaming. I really don't see it disappearing completely, if for no other reason than that the collector's market is just too large to just ignore, if that makes any sense.
I don't think it'll be several I think you'll see it disappear within at least 2, just because the companies are going to invest the money to make sure that physical releases are very limited, because that's the way they want it to go. And money is going to win out the day. They'll push the consumer towards it. And it's unfortunate to see a lot of these games as a service. Very few companies have done it well. Ubisoft probably being the best example with Rainbow Six Siege, considering how well that game has been supported over the years. But they've had a bad year, especially with Ghost Recon Breakpoint this year. Google Stadia, I think they've got the infrastructure to do it now. We'll see. I do have knowledge.
They may have it in Canada, but it's not here in the U.S. There are huge. Just for reference, there are huge swaths of the United States where the best internet you can get is dial-up.
I think we'll see how this all works out. I do have some knowledge of how it's going to work, but I'm optimistic. But it depends on how many people buy into it. I think the idea of having a console experience, literally all you have to do is have a good internet connection and a Chromecast Ultra, for example, is fantastic, and you can play across any screen. That's cool. But again, buying the game, but you have to buy the service too. But then again, that's no different than having Xbox Live or like PlayStation. So I don't know. I guess there will always be a market for it, but I think the bigger companies are trying to push a lot of people out of it because they want to control it. And at the end of the day, shit talks money. Or how does that old saying go? Money talks and bullshit walks. And they're going to try and make that a reality. And hopefully the consumer base will revolt again, so we don't see a lot of things get delisted. And hopefully we won't just buy a game case and here's a download code. Because, man, I remember years ago, they offered you could go into GameStop and you could buy Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And inside it was just a game case. You got a game case, but inside was a DLC code. Man, fuck you.
Man, I can do you one better. The PC version of Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, literally the only thing that was on the install disc with the physical PC release was a Steam installer.
Why?
That was literally it. It was the only thing on the disc was the setup executable for Steam, and then on the back of the manual was the download code to get the game off Steam. Oh, Konami got raked over the coals for that one. So yeah, no, I mean, like again, I think this is something that we're gonna have to agree to disagree, especially in regards to the feasibility of the infrastructure, especially here, at least here in the United States. Because I mean, like me and Sky, like I mentioned on the E3 show, this is shit that I went to school for. I can see why this isn't gonna work. Because the stuff I deal with every day for my job. But it's yeah, I mean, again, I don't see the physical game market disappearing for at least a couple of generations. So, and I honestly, there's a company that I don't see ever going fully digital, and that's Nintendo.
Yeah, they will never go fully digital.
Yeah, I don't, because look, say what you will about their missteps with like the Wii U, or how they're kind of flip-flopping on how they treat people using their game footage on YouTube, but they've by and large been very much about putting the consumer first and making things what's the word I'm looking for, more friendly towards the end user, and I don't see them ever going fully digital because they understand that they have this massive library of games that people want to be able to play for years on end. That's how they don't make their games, with the Call of Duty style. Okay, this is the game that we're going to put out, and this is what they're going to play for a year, and then we're going to come out with another one. No, they make their games to be played for years and years, and to be. They have kind of the. How can I put this? They have almost kind of like the Disney magic, where they make the games that are supposed to be timeless and enjoyed, for years and years, that you kind of share them with your kids and pass them on, and pass on those experiences. Whereas you have companies like EA or Ubisoft, they just make it, okay, this is a game that's gonna get us through the next year, and then we'll just make another one. So I don't see Nintendo going ever fully digital. And that's the end of my ramble.
To step away a little bit from gaming and like anime and stuff, you brought up a good point, Gonzo, about there's just large swaths of the United States that doesn't have good internet. And that kind of brings up a good point about why it will take longer for us to switch over to completely digital, because there's not just the lack of internet in places, but there's also a generation gap that there are, and this is not just like nerd stuff, but on the whole, as society, there are people who will still say pay for cable because they don't really have a concept of how all of the streaming services work, and they just want it to be simplified in what they already know. And there's also a wealth gap. Digital stuff takes technology that maybe not everybody has access to. And that's why places like libraries still exist, because not everybody can afford a computer at home. And I think this is where stuff can get a little bit tricky, and why physical media needs to stick around for a little while longer, because not everybody has the means to go all digital. And even if they did have the money for it, they might not understand how it works. My dad is one of the smartest people in the goddamn world. He was a spy for the military. He's really, really smart, but he struggles with the TV remote in ways that I find very, very funny for a guy who knows Morse code and shit. I'm like, this is a little bit of a generation gap thing, where there's a piece of technology he can take apart a computer and put it back together, but he can't figure out how to make the TV remote work.
So your dad can James Bond some shit, but you ask him to program the PVR, and he's like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it really is a struggle. Like, he clicks the wrong button and then yells at it but he could probably curse at it in a couple of different languages. And it's a real struggle. And you think about, because we're still in an age where the technology is changing at such a rapid pace that it's really hard for even us to keep up with it. New consoles coming out every couple of years. But if you think about, if you haven't already moved to all streaming, like my parents, for example, they haven't moved to all streaming yet. So they've got a cable box and a Blu-ray player and a smart TV. So they've got all of this really good stuff, but they have 3 things, and you have to juggle between those 3 things. And it just makes it that much more difficult. And I feel like that's where a lot of people are. And it makes it that much harder to switch to all digital, because you have way too many different inputs. There's so much, you've got library books, but you also can read it on your Kindle, and then you have to have an account for this, an account for that, and you have to remember all these passwords. And for a lot of people, that can be really overwhelming. I have a thing for my work passwords and then my home passwords, and I've got all these different accounts, and I can't remember shit, man. Just every time you have to go on a website to order something and they want you to make an account for it, you're like, God damn it, do I have to? I don't want to make another username. And that's kind of where we're at with a lot of the digital stuff, is that even if it's all on one device, even if it's all on your Roku or your phone or whatever, you still have to have all these different accounts. And that's a little overwhelming for a lot of people, There's
also the issue of after a while, it gets to the point where like going back to the all these streaming services, one of the things that made Netflix and Hulu so appealing was you could get pretty much a cable equivalent experience without having to have a cable subscription. Well, now we're getting to the point where we have all these subscription services, CBS and Disney Plus, and all these other streaming services popping up for channel exclusive stuff, that it's almost to the point where we're right back where we started, where we're having to basically pay the equivalent of a cable bill between all these streaming services. But I think that kind of thing, this is something that I've said many times in unrelated subjects to this, but I think it holds true here as well, is that, things move in cycles. We did a show a few years ago about how, television was entering into prominence, and that was where all the big budgets were going into and all the best storytelling was going into, versus where previously it had all been in movie theaters. And we did another show, I think, where we were talking about how, more people were buying books than they had previously, and how that was kind of on the rise, and that kind of dipped down a bit. And I think that we're going to see something like that sort of play out here. We're going to see this kind of just this rubber band effect, where we see the streaming market kind of expand and contract as people get tired of, either are really big into having all of these streaming services, but then getting sick of having to pay all these separate bills and having it contract again. So I think with that, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna kind of see kind of an expand and contraction rubber band effect on that, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I really need to plan out what I say before I say it.
Why start now?
I like turtles.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we're kind of running short on time, so let's kind of start wrapping things up. So I guess let's just start with our final thoughts. So, where do you think things are headed? So, Kat, let's start with you.
Well, if we don't end up in some apocalyptic nightmare of Amazon or Facebook or somebody or Google just owns all of our lives, then I don't know. I don't see it moving super, super fast, because I think we're kind of figuring out, and we kind of like where we're at right now, and we're also terrified of everything. We love our phones, but we're terrified of every device having too much information. So I think the rapid pace of technological development is going to kind of slow down a little bit, because we're afraid of everything. And that is going to stymie some of the everything's going digital. I don't think we can go there as fast as Apple thinks we're going to go there. I think a lot of companies want that Star Trek future. They want us to just all have the same thing, and everybody's equal, and it all seems really cool and technological and futuristic, but I don't think we're going to get there that fast. Maybe 2 generations or so. I don't know. But I think there is a possibility for it, but I think we're just going to be stymied by inequality and fear and all of the other things that inhibit development are just going to keep cropping up. We haven't even gone into laws yet about internet speeds and stuff like that. That is all also going to play a huge part in how fast we move to all digital, because if we don't control stuff like that and not have it all corporately controlled, that is going to make a big difference.
Come back, Teddy Roosevelt, we need you. Almost nobody's going to get that except for the American history nerds in the audience, and they're all cheering. So that was for you guys. Okay, Birdman, what about you?
Well, I think people like Jeff Bezos, the Zuck, aka Reptile Boy, Tim Cook, all the big digital gurus, they're going to push for this. All the game companies are going to push for it. I think it's going to come sooner than you guys think, and it's going to suck. Again, for me, I like accessibility, I like ease of use, but Kat did bring up a fabulous point. There is that generational gap to consider, and then the laws have to catch up with it, because your country is full of stupid people in positions of power who don't understand half of what their staff tells them when it comes to technology. So this will be interesting.
And that's all we'll say about that.
Yeah, so good times. It's going to be an interesting little while, as there's going to be definitely some kind of an adjustment period. So all hail the digital overlords and digital rights management.
Well, I'm kind of like I said, I'm maybe this is me being optimist, but I don't see physical media dying away completely, if for no other reason than like we've said a number of times, that collector's market is just too large to just throw away. It's just it's just too big a chunk of the revenue stream to just disregard completely. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. So yeah, what about you guys? What do you think of physical media and an all digital future? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and yeah, we will we'll let's see what you guys think of where we're going. And with that is all the time that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. Thank you as always for tuning in. As always, damn, I'm really getting tongue tied tonight. And with that's all the time that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. Thank you as always for tuning in. We will see you guys in 2 weeks. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the cat.
I'm somehow my dad.
We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Taka, play us out.